Hello and welcome to this case study on a Tesla Model S. This follows NVH looking at a suspension rattle, and it was one of those times where I actually thought this is going to be so easy, there's no need to put Picoscope on or NVH or anything like that. The rattle was so severe that every time you drove over a speed hump, something like that, you got a rattle, and it was a repetitive rattle as well. I felt as though you could probably get underneath the vehicle and almost see what it is, maybe a shield, maybe something that had come loose, even a drift. Not so the case. So again, jacking the wheel up, checking for movement in joints, any free play, even using the lever technique between joints, trying to demonstrate lift, nothing at all. So off we go, apply NVH accelerometers about the suspension, looking for this rattle. And I make a complete mess of it, if I'm absolutely honest, because I had this preconception in my head that this was going to be one particular component only. It couldn't be anything else, and stepped away from following the data. Eventually that comes back to bite me, as you'll see, and then when we review the data, follow the data, we actually get to the source and the cause of this rattle. So enjoy. Hopefully we'll capture this noise now as we go over the drain. There it is. Come forward again. A bit quicker. There it is. There's the gully. Let's come forward. It's actually rattling before we even got there. So Model S with P85, sorry, Model S with rattle from the suspension. So there is something rattling here as you go over a drain grid, and I thought, yeah, this will be a piece of cake. Fetch the arch liner off and there'll be something up there, but no, other than a big spider. Oh, you can see that. I think it's dead. I hope it is. Anyway, yeah, so now I've gone for accelerometers. I've actually placed one on the lower caliper bolt there, one on the anti-roll bar link, I hope that's coming through, and one on the upper wishbone, the top wishbone there. Yeah, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, and I'll put a microphone in as well, and then we'll drive over a speed bump and see what happens.
Okay, so here we have the results from the first road test. This is where the vehicle was driving over the gully heading toward the drain, and this is the area of interest here, these instantaneous events. Now let me just show you what they look like in the frequency view. Difficult to determine. We can certainly see a higher activity from blue and green there, and it appears to be around about sort of 18 Hertz, but that's not really what we're interested in. We're looking at amplitude and events, shocks, which is exactly what these knocks are. And I think we can safely say here that green is standout. So to see what is fitted where, blue, remember, was the lower caliper bolt, B was the top wishbone, and C was the anti-roll bar link. You can see they're all mounted in a vertical. We're all measuring the y-axis. And here on channel D, these differ slightly. This is actually a microphone inside the cabin, so we try and correlate events here to what we see here on the accelerometers, and I think we can safely say top wishbone doesn't look to be of any concern at this stage. So let's have a listen to this so we can play this back. So hopefully you just heard that. Let's do that once more. Yeah, there it was, as dull as it sounded. And let's go to channeling view. So we do right click, channeling view, and we'll take away A and B. And hopefully we can see, well, let's have a look how we just have this almost varying sine wave until we get to here, and then we get this disruption here that looks to correlate with these knocks. The fact that these shocks appear when we hear the knock, that's enough evidence to me to suggest that this is our offender. And go back to the right click view, A and B, and again I think we can probably go for anti-roll bar link based on this. That would be my go-to component, if I'm honest. They tend to be common offenders. What's really cool now though is we can highlight this area here, right click and export this region to .wav. So we can export all channels displayed here and then listen to them. So then not only will we listen to the microphone playback, but we'll actually listen to the accelerometers, and that's where the real diagnostic value is. So what happens when you export, you end up with a zip file that looks like this, and there they are. Look, this is channel A, B, C and D. So if I click on A, there we have noise detected in the caliper or caliper mounting bolt. Let's do that again, and let me just tidy up a little bit here, and now we'll do channel B. Now that is top wishbone. It's a much duller sound. This is anti-roll bar. Channel C, anti-roll bar link. Yeah, much harder, much more repetitive. This is channel D. This is the mic in the cabin. Much duller sound, isn't it? So good news is you can hear it in the cabin. That's what the customer can hear. That's what the customer's complaining of. So let's go back to A again. A was caliper bolt. C is definitely the harder one of the three. C was anti-roll bar link. I'll just play back B again. Okay, so based on that and based on this amplitude here, I think it's fair to say that we can perhaps go ahead and remove the anti-roll bar link and road test again and see what results we get from there. Okay, so here we have the results of a similar road test driving over the drain gully, this time using Picoscope rather than Pico Diagnostics MBH. And if I go to the views and go auto arrange, you'll recognise this hopefully immediately from the time domain view in Pico Diagnostics, because that's exactly what it is. The beauty of using Picoscope is that we can zoom and we can measure the time, so we can look for the first responder, and this is where I was going with that comment when I said curveball. So let's just reset. Just to run through where we are, channel A, B, C and D are exactly the same as they were in NVH, so nothing has changed there. But I wanted to zoom in on this area here. So first of all, this is undulation in the suspension. So this is just the suspension rising and falling as we ride into the drain gully. But this is a knock. This is the energy generated from a knock. So I'm going to zoom in on this area here, and hopefully you can see immediately, whilst channel C has the greater amplitude, channel A is the first responder. I'm just going to increase the scaling by 1 and the same again on channel C, and it's fair to say most certainly channel A, which is connected to the lower caliper bolt, responded before the accelerometer connected to the anti-roll bar link. That is definitely not what I was expecting. If we say our response time is around about there, and it's difficult to say where you draw this, but I mean we're talking microseconds, aren't we, between? But let's just look at it on face value. Most certainly A responds before C, even though C has the greater amplitude. Nevertheless, we are going to remove the anti-roll bar link, because that is not going to cost anything other than a bit of time, and if the knock is still there, then fair enough, the anti-roll bar link is not our offender. We'll also shuffle the accelerometers around in the next test as well, because the accelerometer connected to the top wishbone was really revealing nothing, was it? You can see there in the red waveform. Let me just pull the red down. That was channel B. Channel B was top wishbone. There was no knocking energy there, just undulation. We'll put that onto the shock absorber tube, we may as well. We'll remove, because the anti-roll bar link will be removed, we'll put channel C onto the anti-roll bar itself. Don't know what that will reveal, but it'll be interesting to see. And we'll take channel A, this is on the caliper bolt, we'll just move that to the hub bolt, so that's the bolt supporting the hub to the suspension leg. Okay, so the anti-roll bar link is now removed, and we've gone for accelerometer on the anti-roll bar link. Leave that one on the shock absorber, and let's turn the camera around, hopefully we can see this. We should have one on the hub bolt there on the inside, so we'll see what transitions that's made in terms of noise. Okay, so here's the results from the next road test where we'd removed the anti-roll bar link, and we were right to do both. We were right to be cautious because whilst the amplitude was greater in that component, it was not the first responder, and nevertheless knock is still there. So let's just recap on where we are. First of all, this is what the view would look like in NVH time domain, so they'll be lined up accordingly. We'll reset that. Refresher on where we are. We have the channel A to the front hub bolt. I've put the front hub rear bolt. It's a bolt that comes through the rear or the reverse section of the suspension leg. Channel B to the near side front shock absorber tube. Channel C to the anti-roll bar where the link fits. So this is not to the link is now removed, and the cabin mic still remains. Now I've gone a little bit OTT, I think, with the ranges because our peak to peak are very low, so I could have changed or gone for something like maybe 500 millivolts plus or minus. Quick check there is to just use the peak to peak measurement for A, B, C and D, and let's make them small, and we can see there the greatest peak, channel A 284, peak to peak 264 on channel C, and 60 of course. Yeah, either way, let's zoom in here and let's change the scaling. Let's go up by 1 for all of them. So just roll my thumb wheel on the mouse up or down to increase or decrease the scaling. And remember that these smooth progressions, this one here, that is not a knock, that is undulation, and it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, because channel C, let me pull that down so we can see that clearly. Channel C here is responding to suspension movement because channel C was the accelerometer connected to the anti-roll bar link. Sorry, not the anti-roll bar link, the anti-roll bar. So the anti-roll bar will be receiving movement because it's still connected to the right-hand front or the offside front suspension. However, it looks as though it's receiving some energy somehow from the knock. It's certainly translating into there. Unless there's contact, of course, there shouldn't be. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Anyway, let's put them all back to 0 at the same position. Zoom in here and look for our first responder, and wow, there's not a lot to choose between those, is there really? Channel A front hub bolt, so again it was caliper bolt before, we'd moved it to the hub, and there's not a lot really, they're bolted to the same mass, so again there's not a lot to choose between. If we'd had one on the caliper bolt and one on the hub, it'd be very interesting to see what the difference was between them. It would be very little, but this is now interesting. Near side front shocker tube, clearly see that's responding. It's not responding as quickly, is it? It's not the first to respond, but it's kind of on par. So I'm very interested in that. We're still leaning towards the hub and the hub bolt and the hub assembly and anything connected to it, which of course the shock absorber is, isn't it, indirectly? So again, food for thought. But yeah, just a note, this is undulation, this is a knock, this high energy that peaks momentarily and then sort of dissipates, almost like the sounding of a bell, the ringing of a coil, something like that. Yeah, high energy and then followed by dissipation. So I think it's a good time for me to actually say a few additional words here rather than just leave you with that bombshell. And that was my preconception about what this noise was. I think, if the truth be told, when I started this study I thought this will be quick and easy and there may not be any legs in the whole process of using NVH, and how wrong I was, as you'll see as we go on. I genuinely thought that this was going to be an anti-roll bar link, so we took that off. That didn't make any difference at all. And then, rather than follow the data where we could see definitely something in the hub slightly before the shock absorber, I went down the route of shock absorber, only because this repetitive style rattle that we've got is it sort of 10 shocks in half a second, about 20 in a full second, 20 hertz. It all was consistent with sprung suspension with a component, and the bell type effect, so we've got that sort of peak amplitude and then that oscillation that disappears, that cone shape. I just got it in my head that this was originating from within the shock absorber, maybe a valve, a shuttle valve, some kind of control valve within the shock absorber that was knocking, rattling loose, and of course being inside a tube would then give us this sort of bell type, repetitive knock type sound. Anyway, completely wrong, but I will carry on as I did with the case study, so you'll see how I had to come full circle and then wind my neck in and go back to the data. So really the message here is be driven by the data at all times.
Okay, so this time we're going on shock absorber completely, so we've gone the upper shock amount there, and coming down under the arch we're going shock absorber midway and then shock absorber at the bottom.
Okay, so here we are with the complete analysis of the near side front shocker. So A is the lower mount where it bolts to the lower arm, B is the shocker tube itself just below the spring saddle plate, and C is the left hand upper shocker mount. If we go to views and reset, auto arrange, there's our NVH view, and we know from the shape, this cone shape, this ringing, that's our high energy, that's our knock. Let's reset that and zoom in and look for the first responder. Now the trigger was set on channel A, we can see there, look, but B was the first responder. Okay, it was on the rise just before channel A. Let's have a look at another knock. Let's choose this one. That one again, and that one's a difficult shout, isn't it? It looks, that is definitely the knock there, isn't it? That momentary spike, followed by the ringing. Oh, it's a tough shout whether that would be undulation and then that knock. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, that one again, toss up between those two, isn't it? And this one here, same again. Okay, so we are looking at A and B. So we're not looking, according to that, at the upper shock amount, which is good. That's right at the top. That's something that did concern me. I thought that could rattle like we've heard in the video, upper shock amount, but we can exclude that. Let's just pull that down and have a good look at that. there's nothing, is there really, by comparison? And when we zoom in on all three, it's certainly not our knock. So there's a component we can certainly exclude. And based on this, I convinced myself that we needed a shock absorber. So here is a capture of the vehicle driving over the drain gully, but at full lock, so either full left hand or full right hand. It didn't make any difference, but I clearly noted that the noise wasn't there, and there is the proof. If we move on a little bit, there again, no instantaneous knock. It's quite jagged, but ultimately that is just undulation. Now, I wish I'd have studied this a bit closer, because this is a revelation if you look at this, because the knock on this occasion must have been evident. And when we zoom in, look at that, it's clear to see that on the red, which is the shocker tube below the saddle plate, no knock is evident there. Yet here, the A, which is shocker lower mount bolt at lower arm, clearly a shock is detected there. Now on that one I've missed it completely, because again, focused on what I thought it was going to be, saw that and thought, yeah, that'll do, that's fine, without spending more time analysing the data. Alright, so based on our findings, closer inspection on that shocker, it is damp there. I mean, that's not excessive, that's no real drama, certainly not dripping. But whatever that noise is, it originates from within there, so a shocker it is. Okay, so round two, unfortunately a replacement shocker, second hand as it is, has not cured it. So I've now got a microphone aimed at the hub. We've put an accelerometer back on the shocker, and so if I come around here, we've got an accelerometer on the hub bolts at the rear. Okay, interesting. That cap is, you can see there, that is just a bung. This leg assembly that supports the hub is actually hollow, so I've been inside there with a endoscope but couldn't see anything adrift inside at this stage. Okay, so here we are with our first NVH capture after installing the second-hand shock absorber. And notice once again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 shocks in half a second, so approximately 20 in a full second had it continued. Same characteristics, and let's have a listen to it. It's identical. Now I have made a little tweak to the software, so here's how we were configured. Channel A on the shocker tube as before, that was an accelerometer. Notice though that I've called it a microphone. There is a microphone on channel B aimed at the rear of the near side front hub, and then of course there is an accelerometer on the hub itself. Now again, that does look to have a greater amplitude. Remember, we can use the right click feature, channel in view, to get a little bit more resolution. But we'll bring them all back. The beauty of calling an accelerometer a microphone is we don't have to do this export region to .wav to listen to them. I can actually just go channel in view, hide them, and now we can just listen to channel A. Okay, and same again, listen to channel B. Channel B will have more ambient noise because it is a microphone, remember. Certainly captures that in the hub, doesn't it? And then channel in view C. This is on the hub itself.
Right, so as I said in the video, I actually started to think there might have been something inside that suspension leg, but it was absolutely clear throughout. So the best option now is to use Picoscope and look at the first responder, if in effect returning where we were right at the start before I went off on a tangent.
So another change of tactic now is to mount or to bond washers onto aluminium components. So there's the bottom arm, there's our track control arm front, and yeah, it looks like at the moment we're getting a lot of response from this track control arm show, so we'll pursue that.
Here we are with the results from the road test after the shock absorber replacement. So this has got the used shocker, and the blue accelerometer that you saw in the previous video that was just adhered to the ball joint bolt, that has been moved back to the lower arm, the washer that I was pointing out. We've got a microphone aimed at the rear hub, you can see there the low intensity, and then near side front track control arm, that was already in position in the video. So just looking at amplitude alone, there is definitely heavy or a lot of activity in the track control arm. Let's do the channeling view. So if we take away 22.5 Pascal plus or minus, if we bear that and compare that with A and channeling view, take away C, yeah, we are a lot less. I think we're not even getting anywhere near 20 there, are we? So food for thought on that. Let's have a listen to them. So this is lower suspension arm. This one is the microphone aimed at the hub. Remember, there's a lot of ambient noise comes with that. And then channel C is track control arm. Right, but which was the first responder? So that's where we'll use Picoscope. Either way, just a quick one, because this amplitude here was so high, would have overranged when I think it was set to engine compartment. You can go back into your setup and amend here. So normally we choose between engine compartment and passenger compartment. Well, now we can also improve or increase that range as well. So this will take you right out to the maximum of 125 decibel. This is where you will typically label up each accelerometer microphone. And remember, we use the cheat for this one. We've called them all microphones, even though they are accelerometers, simply because we want to be able to listen to playback within the software. Okay, so here we have the Picoscope capture, and nothing changes. So the blue is to the accelerometer ACC at the lower arm, mic aimed at the rear hub, and ACC again, accelerometer at the track control arm. So these are on bonded washers to the aluminium arms components. And zoom in, oh, I think we can clearly see there, by a mile first responder is green. Green is track control arm. And I've also chosen to do peak to peak measurements between the rulers between A and C, because not only do we have a first responder, but we also have a greater amplitude. Don't dwell too much on amplitude, but certainly instantaneous first response. And these measurements are between the rulers. So in effect, Picoscope is only displaying measurements between these 2 points, these 2 time rulers here. And there it is again, that characteristic knock, knock, knock.
Driving forward and driving in reverse.
Here we are then with the 3 accelerometers connected to the track control arm on the near side front, And this is for triangulation now. I'm fairly confident something is going on inside the track control arm. So channel A is at the track control arm ball joint nut. We can see that in the image. Channel B is out of shot, but that is going to the track control arm bush bolt. Now that will be, to a certain degree, immune to this knock if it is generated in the track control arm. And then finally channel C, a track control arm bonded washer. So let's just go straight to the centre of here, and yeah, let's come back one. Let's just roll the mouse wheel just to increase over the scale, just to increase scaling. And yeah, this is undulation. There's not a lot of movement there in the red, and it's a toss-up, isn't it, when we look at this, where this energy is coming from, pretty much between green and blue. If we're going to focus on this spike here, we would say it was the green, which was bonded washer on the track control. Just look at the red. The red looks to be immune to this knock. Let me just see if I can get some better separation here. Let's just zoom in and reduce the ranges again, scale, sorry. Yeah, it is detecting the knock, isn't it? But it's certainly not exposed to the high energy that we see above there, so the bush is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Looking now at reverse, because this knock was generated in the forward direction. Let's go to buffer 17, which was reverse. We'll just reset the view layout and zoom in again. And I think this is quite intriguing, the fact that nothing really changes whether you are forward or reverse. Channel B, we can forget about that. It's still between the track control arm and the ball joint.
Okay, so this has now been removed. This is track control arm from the hub, and well, there is play in that, but I can't get it to pull in or out. I'd expect that to have moved in this direction, in and out. Maybe there's a spring underneath it inside here that's taking out any play. But what we'll do, we'll give that a run now in that condition, see if that noise has disappeared. Okay, so I've just come out with the traction control arm disconnected from the near side front suspension. We don't do that, but we're in a controlled environment. I just noticed there that I thought, could that still be there? No, that is a different signature. I think that is the track control arm. Whilst it's out of the hub, it's still in close proximity to the hub, so there is movement. That's a collision by the look of it, that is. But this is when I drop into the drain gully that I'm testing, which is completely different to what we've seen before. So resume recording, and we'll go in reverse over the drain gully. It's a single knock, not the repetitive knock, 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 knock that we've been seeing. Come forward over the gully. Nothing. That's the interesting bit. That, I'm sure, is reversing. That's a collision of the track control arm with the hub, just resting in the hub. Coming forward, that's absorbed. That is definitely different. Let's go back in reverse. Yeah, it's different. That is different completely. Coming forward. Okay, I think we have a result there.
So this is the capture from the previous video where I thought that we may still have an issue, but no. This is the track control arm. Remember, it's removed from the hub, but it's still attached to the subframe via the bush. So there are times when we were getting a collision. It was hitting components underneath the suspension, underneath and about the suspension, sorry. So in reverse, we had this collision here. This was forward over the drain gully. Reverse, forward, reverse. but it's a different signature. Also note that I had to change the positions of the mics, well, the accelerometers that are configured as microphones. We have now the near side front shocker tube under the spring saddle plate, so that's channel A. Channel B is a mic aimed at the rear hub, and channel C is on the near side front hub bolt, as we did right at the very beginning. And let's have a listen to them. Let's probably go with the worst offender, which is C. So channel in view, and let's just listen to C. So this is now in reverse. Completely different. Forward. Reverse. And then we'll let this go to forward. Okay, absolutely nothing there. So let's just see if there's anything more to be revealed on what was the well, let's try B. Let's just see what B returns. So reverse. And then forward. Okay, so that confirms, whilst they are demonstrating an event, a knock, an instantaneous noise, it's a collision, it's different to what we've been listening to.
Alright, so there it is, new track control arm. And yeah, I've bonded a washer on, just waiting for that glue to settle so we can then go back out and compare it with the previous one. Okay, so here's the acid test over this gully. Nothing. Brilliant. There we are. Okay, so here we go. New track control arm on and reversing back over the drain grid. And wow, thank God it's cured. Coming forward again. No rattle. Reverse. Reverse back, hitting the drain grid just there, and then forward once again. Okay, so let's just have a look at the analysis there. Now we've got a lot of hash here. This is the microphone, remember, not the accelerometer. So I'll just pull the microphone down for a second. Let's move that aside and see here we just have undulation now. That's where the wheel drops into the gully and back out again, with none of this instantaneous high energy knocking noise we had before.
So here is that capture then, now with Picoscope. So this would have been another road test, sorry, Pico Diagnostics MVH, it would have been another road test. That's pretty much the most activity there. We could look here, there's a bit there as well of course, and there, and not so much there, but we'll focus on this. Let's try and centralize that. So this is undulation. There looks to be an event there, not sure what it is, but look at the amplitude, it's so small of whatever that might be. Let's have a look at what is connected where. So lower suspension arm bonded washer on channel A. This is the mic aimed at the hub. This is accelerometer set as mic, near side front track control arm bonded washer. Remember, this is the new one. And this is the shocker tube on D. So we've actually got 4 sensors now. And let's have a listen to them one at a time. So we'll go with channel view. Let's go channel D to start with. Let's just back up a little bit and press play. it's like we're not even listening to a file relevant to this vehicle now. It just doesn't, it's so quiet from what we had. This is C. Near side front. Sorry, let me do that again. This is near side front track control arm. You can hear the brake supply now. Just as you go over the knock, I'm applying the brake there. After, you can hear almost the grabbing of the disc by the pad. B, a lot of activity, but remember it's a mic. This is truly a microphone, so a lot of ambient noise now. Okay, and then the final one I think was bottom arm, wasn't it? Suspension arm. Okay, so I think that's conclusive as well. Again, we have got an event there, but it's not relevant to what we're listening to. It could just be a combination of wheel dropping into the gully perhaps, or some form of contact somewhere. I can't explain that away, I don't know. Nevertheless, it's not the signature we had prior to the fix. So here's the final post-fix analysis, just so as we can use the features in Picoscope to analyse it a little bit closer. You may know, sorry, that I've been swapping and changing between light mode, dark mode. That's because I now prefer dark mode when I'm doing the analysis, but some of the video was shot in light mode. Well, that's nice and easy to change, so that is under your settings. And then if you go to a theme, select theme, so we go light or we go dark, whichever one you prefer. I do find the yellows come out really well in dark mode. Now we'll focus on, I mean, they all look like instantaneous knocks, don't they? But when you actually zoom in and analyze them, you can actually see that you're looking at undulation. So let's take, it was this area here, or this one, doesn't really matter, but take away the microphone, because that does look like a knock there, doesn't it? And what you're left with now is purely suspension movement. Yeah, what we don't have is knocks shooting off. There's something here that is a knock, definitely, or it's some kind of contact maybe somewhere. There's a little bit in the blue there, but they don't correlate. They're not all together as they were before, with just that minimal time difference between them. So yeah, that's typical undulation from suspension. In effect, a sine wave, and the mic unfortunately captures, unfortunately or fortunately depending what you're after, but captures a lot of ambient noise as well. Hopefully, well, let's just run through this. If I click on the blue axis there, I can bring blue to the front, the same for green, same for yellow, and the same for red, so you can make those your dominant or bring to the front when viewing. Alright, I hope that helps.
Okay, so here's a cutaway of the ball joint that I've just pressed out the track control arm, and that looks no more than a plastic cup that sits in the base of here. That makes up our ball joint, and here is the, if I just move that, you should be able to see the back of the ball. There we are, the back of the ball just moving of the whole joint. There we are. I can now feel some up and down, but still not convinced how we got that repetitive rattle. Okay, so stripping a bit further, there was plenty of grease in this joint. I've just pulled the gaiter off. Yes, of course there is some up and down movement, but that's really, I think, pretty much because the seat of the ball joint is now missing. So still not convinced how that would give us that rattle, but I'll dig a bit deeper now. Alright, so here we have the pieces of the ball joint. They've corroded now
quite considerably because it's been a while since these were taken out. I think it was October last year, and I was looking for sort of telltale features. That's the cap off the base here, so that's how that would have gone originally. What I have noticed is witness marks inside the ball joint. So if we look at the sort of sequential witness marks there, some are quite pronounced, like those two, that one, and then as we come around, it's much more fine, less defined. Now whether that's where it's sort of worn through the cup being this here, and if we look at this as well, we can also see that there are quite large gaps at some point and then smaller at others. So we compare sort of this one here to that one there. So there's definitely sort of wear within this cup, even in fact just looking at the rust marks on the one side and not on the other, whether or not that's where our knock was. So in effect, did we have our ball joints of course maybe moving slightly, because it wouldn't take a lot to generate a knock, but was there perhaps a degree of movement this way as well in the fore and aft? I can safely say you couldn't feel anything when you tried to rock the wheel, and when you placed a bar between the arm and the hub, you couldn't feel any lift. You couldn't generate lift from this ball joint within this cup. So yeah, there, lesson learned, I guess. Anyway, thanks again.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that study. There you have it, having to go full circle and look back at the data. I think the power of preconceptions is dangerous. I was absolutely convinced this was a shock absorber, something inside there rattling, it was behaving almost like a bell. Not the case. I also shied away from initially bonding washers to aluminium components because, again, I thought this was not going to be a ball joint. It couldn't be a ball joint, as you know it was. So the message really is be guided by the data. Try and put any previous repair or previous successful repairs that you may have had for similar symptoms, similar faults, to one side, and actually stick by the data, and that will bring about a conclusion. Thanks for watching.